just have to click. Got it. Okay. Well, I won't begin with Once Upon a Time. That's been used. But I think what I would like to do, as I thought about doing this, and I wrote some notes, is to go back to originally how this came to be. And it's kind of curious how things just sort of happen. When I was working at the university at this particular time, I was asked by the Akron Symphony Orchestra to prepare a talk to the audience on a work of Franz Liszt. If I remember right, it was his Les Preludes. So I went to the main library on the campus and I just went to the section where they had a bunch of books on Franz Liszt. And by eye happened to catch books on the aisle just right across from it. And there was a book with a very strange title on it. And it was called Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. And I said, what in hell is that about? So I took it off the shelf and sort of briefly perused it there and took it home and read it. Well, that book wound up having a rather devastating impact on me. The book by the author D. Brown became quite famous, and it was a real eye opener. It dealt primarily with what the U.S. government and white Western expansion did to all these different Indian tribes during the primary period it focused on was the 19th century. And it began with the East Coast area and moved all the way out to California, Oregon, that that area. So it covered that kind of ground. And when I finished the book, very simply, I had one major emotion, and that was rage. I was very, very angry because this book revealed things that I certainly did not learn in high school or college courses. It was a phenomenal eye opener, not only to me, but to many, many people. It just revealed the history of a part of this country that was so devastating to peoples that had lived here in this region we call the United States, so called, for centuries. And he had a way of detailing, this guy D. Brown had a way of detailing so many things that happened. And when I finished reading the book, I said to myself, I want to do something. So I began sketching a work for a soprano, five multiple percussionists, and piano. And I got maybe, I don't know, maybe 50 bars into it, and I just simply stopped. And I said to myself, with what I'd read in that book, there is no way an ensemble like this can begin to convey the tragedy of what happened to so many different groups of people during the 19th century. So what I did was then, but my intention was then to create a large work in four movements for a soprano, a tenor, a baritone that would also act as a narrator, and a full orchestra. And so it became something quite different. Let me go to this first screen. Actually, it's probably the second screen. Yeah, let me see. Okay, well I'll just show you this first. This is the advertisement that went out for this program because it wound up being done, prepared as a television program that Ohio public broadcasting stations were going to broadcast all over the state. So it was designed for TV and it was first filmed as a performance. I'll get into that, how the performance came to be. These are the four movements that I called it. And so it was a four-page brochure. This is just the first page. And let me get rid of that. And I've got some notes up here, so I want to, okay, let me open the next one. And I can talk about it more that way. No. All right, this is what was the beginning of the score. Now, maybe I should try and expand. No, I don't think I will. I'll do it this way. And let me expand it this way. You are all seeing what I'm seeing, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can all see this. Okay.
Yeah.
So move it over a little bit. There are the four movements to it. And let me read you the dedication that I wrote. This work is dedicated to the dead, to those countless thousands of Native Americans who perished before one of mankind's most outrageous betrayals, and to their descendants who continue the struggle to survive. This work is dedicated to a magnificent and proud people, to a philosophy which holds that the earth and humanity are of one mind, that the measure of the land and the measure of mankind are but the same. To that spirit this work shall not forget, to that eternal time for all who shall not be there, for all who rise and pass. Yeah, to say that I was slightly emotionally involved in doing this would be a mild understatement. The text adaptation, and I'll explain a little bit how I came to this, but during the credits, when you see them, these were speeches from these people, these American Indian leaders, that I used in the course of the piece. The orchestra, full orchestra, as you can see there, the usual standard kind of full orchestra that we use. Percussion. The string section, I wanted what I've got listed here, but I couldn't get as many strings as I wanted. So maybe I had a half or a little more than half the strings that I wanted for the piece. But that's what I had to do. So, in the process of getting people to play this piece, the makeup, I had to go to each one. The orchestra was mostly made up of full-time faculty, graduate students, and a few people that we did hire. I had to go to everyone individually on the faculty, explain the project of what I wanted to do, and ask if they would be willing to do it. Because so far as I know, none of them were getting credit for doing it. They were putting in their own time. And in my case, not one of the people I talked to turned me down. So that was, probably pretty extraordinary, but that's what happened. The conductor, by the way, I need to mention this, a guy named Frank Di Liberto. Some of you may know that name because he was the principal bass player of the Oregon Symphony Orchestra for quite a few years. At the time this piece was done, he was the director of the University Orchestra, and he taught bass. He had like 12 double bass students. He was a terrific bass player. He just attracted students, graduate students only, from all over. So I asked him if he would do the piece after it was finished, and he said, yeah, he would do it. He left the university after about 2 or 3 years. He and his wife moved out to Oregon. He got the position as principal double bass player in the Oregon Symphony Orchestra. He and his wife were originally from, I think, Montana or Wyoming, and they wanted to move back out west. And there's nothing in Ohio that looks like the West. So they came back home to them anyway. But he was here for quite a few years. He's retired from the orchestra here now. But he was a great guy. He was a great guy. The performance took place in a large concert hall that seats about 3,000 people. And the orchestra section was pretty much filled with about 800 people that attended. That's probably the largest group I've ever had for a piece of mine. And it was a culmination, this performance was a culmination of, on the university campus, a week of powwow in which you had a number of different Indian tribes and students and faculty mixing with them over a 5-day period. And the culmination of the powwow week was the performance of this work. And there were a number of different Indian tribes represented in the audience. Some were from Canada. And so they filled up pretty much that whole bottom area. And it was filmed with a multiple camera setup for later on being edited and produced and shown for as a television production. Now, the libretto that I used, this, let me show you to you this way. Let me get this next screen up. Okay, let me see. Is this it? Yep, this is it. All right, this one here, let me expand it. At the beginning of D. Brown's book, or actually I shouldn't say the beginning, this is the book. There are 19 chapters in the book, and at the beginning of every single chapter, in italicized writing, he quotes various Native American leaders at the beginning of every single chapter. So when I realized I really wanted to expand this into a large work and get the backing for it, which I did, what I did to create a libretto is I went down to Kinko's, I remember doing this, and I Xeroxed every single page, the beginning, the first page of every one of those 19 chapters. I brought them home, put myself in a room, locked the door, spread the pages all over the floor, had a scissors and Scotch tape with me, and I started reading through them to see if I could create something in 4 parts made up entirely of their words, the Indian leaders' words that began each one of those 19 chapters. Now, let me expand this just a bit. Give you an idea, here's chapter, can't quite see it, chapter 13 maybe, The Flight of the Nez Perce. Now, at some points during what you will hear and see, I twist who is doing it from an Indian leader to a white man. And the top 3 lines by Yellow Wolf, and you are all seeing this, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Where it says, the whites told only one side, told it to please themselves, told much that is not true, only his own best deeds, only the worst deeds of the Indians has the white man told. Now, in the third movement, the second movement, perhaps even the first movement, you will see the narrator, who is the baritone. He will be speaking these words as a white man. He said, we told only one side, told it to please ourselves, told much that is not true. Only our own best deeds, only the worst deeds of the Indians, has the white man told. I did that for dramatic effect. You will see that over the course of the video. Then lines by Chief Joseph below that. I used certain ones you can see in the brackets. The earth was created by the assistance of the sun, and it should be left as it was. The country was made without lines of demarcation, and it is no man's business to divide. And I would skip down, the earth and myself are of one mind. Anyway, you get the idea of how I created a libretto in 4 parts. I had no clue as to how to create a libretto, so I just did it, period. If you don't know something, just go ahead and do it, take the risk, and you either fail and learn in the process, or you succeed. And I just did my gut response to trying to create something in 4 movements, and you will see what happens in this regard. Okay, let me get back to that. Now, as for the composition itself, you will hear a number of places in it that contain tone clusters, contrapuntal sections, even a short string trio in the 4th movement. There are aleatoric areas, as will be found, and I want to mention at this point that there is absolutely no use of any kind of borrowed material, whether from American Indian sources or any other sources. No borrowed material for either the soloists that you will see or in the orchestra at all. That would not be true for some other works that I've done that have Indian themes where I have actually borrowed Indian material. Now, I want to talk just a bit about the 3rd movement. The 3rd movement is the only movement that is based strictly on one speech. The speech is by an Indian leader named Wovoka. He became known as the Paiute Messiah, and this was occurring in the 1880s and late 70s into the 80s. And let me read it to you. It's not that long, but I will do this just to give you a sense of the despair, the desperation. I'll give you a little bit of larger context of how this happened, what happened because of it. This is Wovoka, And he says it as follows. I better get my other glasses. Oops. Ugh. Pause. Okay, reading glasses. So he writes,
I
all
didn't
in.
get that. Could you try again?
No thanks, lady. I must have hit something. Yeah, I did. All Indians must dance, everywhere. Keep on dancing. Pretty soon, in next spring, Great Spirit come. He bring back all game of every kind. The game be thick everywhere. All dead Indians come back and live again. They all be strong, just like young men. Be young again. Old blind Indian, see again, and get young and have fine time. When Great Spirit comes this way, then all the Indians go to mountains, high up away from whites. Whites can't hurt Indians then. Then while Indians way up high, big flood comes, like water, and all white people die, get drowned. After that, water go away, and then nobody but Indians everywhere, and all game, and game all kinds thick. Then medicine man tell Indians to send word to all Indians to keep up dancing, and the good time will come. Indians who don't dance, who don't believe in this word, will grow little, just about a foot high, and stay that way. Some of them will be turned into wood and be burned in fire. Now, in this third movement, the baritone starts. He will, through the course of the movement, he will start speaking, he will suddenly start singing, and then as the words continue, he will go into a Sprechstimme kind of approach to what he's doing vocally. What this speech means, it came to represent, during that period of time, the late 19th century, not only the anxiety and the desperation of what was going on with so many Indian peoples, but this became known as what they call the ghost dance religion. And people, this started, I think, in the Southwest, and it's just spread to the Sioux area, the plains. It spread all over, all over. And people took this up because they were so desperate. The Indians started dancing. They might have been located on reservations. And what eventually what happened about this is that the U.S. government and those that were on reservations, they started seeing all the Indians there start doing this ghost dance religion. And it started to make them very nervous. They wondered if they were suddenly going to get out of the reservation, leave the reservation, attack whites, attack the soldiers. And so they were very fearful about this. And it led to massacres and killings because of it. The army just said, you cannot do this. You cannot do this, what you call this ghost dance religion. And with Voca, I mean, it's an absurd speech when you think about it. He talked about, there was this white shirt, that there was kind of a shirt that they would wear. And the shirt would be impenetrable from bullets. Bullets could not pierce it. And other absolutely insane things. But their desperation was such that when this ghost dance religion spread, it became very, very intense. And like I say, it really worried the hell out of U.S. officials, particularly for those Indians that were not yet settled on reservations, as well as those that, of course, were. And there will be slides. You're going to see things where they're actually performing the ghost dance religion. So that's what I wanted to talk about with the third movement. But to go a little bit further, near the end of this third movement, you will, as the baritone is continuing with this incantation of his, hold on just a moment, let's see, get rid of something here. Yeah. The soprano and the baritone are going to be overlapping the words that the soprano and the tenor are going to be overlapping the words that the baritone is saying. They're going to be doing it at their own speed. It's sort of like a contrapuntal overlapping. And they are essentially going to be in sort of like, if you can imagine a trance, a ghost-like trance is the imagery I had in mind for this. And the baritone goes on with what he's doing, reaching a climax, as you will see. And the soprano and tenor keep going on with their their words overlapping the baritone's words. And again, the audience isn't necessarily supposed to make any sense of what what the soprano, the tenor might be saying, but they will get some words out of it. And then the baritone will reach a point of, in this Sprechstimme mode of singing, where he will drive to a huge climax, the orchestra with him, and I'll show you the background for what the orchestra is doing at that point in time. The orchestra suddenly cuts off, and you're left with the tenor, the soprano, and the baritone. They wake out of particularly the soprano and the tenor wake out of their ghost-like trance, and they see the reality in front of them. What they are seeing is what happened at Wounded Knee, South Dakota in December of 1890. They are seeing a massacre of the Miniconjou Sioux tribe led by Bigfoot. And this happened in, like I say, I think December of 1890. And the cavalry, which happened to be Custer's old U.S. 7th Cavalry, was escorting this poverty-stricken band of Indians, what was left of them, to this area. And they were camped at this area we now know, Wounded Knee, South Dakota, on the Pine Ridge Reservation. And supposedly a shot broke out from either the Indian side or the cavalry side, the troop side. Nobody really knows for sure. But what it led to, as they had set up cannons, set up Gatling guns, focusing down, the U.S. cavalry had the high ground, focusing down on them, it just suddenly erupted in a huge amount of gunfire. Bottom line is that they estimate over 300 men, women, and children of that band were murdered, were massacred. Now, the pictures when the incantation of the baritone, tenor, soprano, when they stop, the baritone realizes, he comes out of his trance, and he realizes what he's seeing in front of him. The soprano and tenor will be trying to deny the reality of what the baritone is seeing in front of him. What you are going to see at that point is photographs shot by photographers belonging to the U.S. 7th Cavalry of all the bodies lying on the ground, the trench that has been dug there where their bodies were going to be thrown into, and the bodies couldn't be touched for about 2 to 3 days because a massive storm hit, and the cold, etc. The bodies just froze where they fell, how they fell, and they look like stone statues in that regard. The first picture you will see is of their leader, Bigfoot, in death, and then you will see how, as the baritone is waking up and seeing this, and he's trying to deny what he's seeing, but he's seeing it, the soprano and the tenor will be trying to deny what the baritone is seeing. So again, I did all this for dramatic effect. And when you see it matched with the photographs, thanks to the courtesy of the U.S. 7th Cavalry, they did all the pictures. Sort of reminds me of World War II. The Nazis took all these kinds of photographs, that. And, I thought that, we have a tendency to think of massacres and stuff like that happening in Europe, happening in Asia, happening in South America, whatever. We don't associate mass murder with this country. Well, tell that to the blacks in Tulsa, and tell that, as the photographs you will see, to what happened at Wounded Knee, South Dakota. Now, here I will go back for a moment to the title of D. Brown's book, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. So there is this place called Wounded Knee on the Pine River Reservation. I have been out to it twice. And when you go there, you will see a long trench. And in it, there are the bodies that were thrown into it after the massacre occurred. And, what is there to say? So this happened in 1890, December of 1890. And to me, the title of the book, as well as Wounded Knee, South Dakota, it symbolizes the end of all Indian resistance in this country. After this point in time, there would be no more real fighting between various Indian tribes and the U.S. government, represented by the cavalry, the infantry, whatever. They would all resign themselves to being put onto reservations and not leaving the reservations. As we know, as I'm sure some of you are aware, their children would be taken from them to schools in Philadelphia to have the Indian part of them eradicated, their language eradicated, their culture as Indians eradicated, and stuff like that. I mean, we know that now. So it's burying my heart at Wounded Knee is just symbolic for the end of all Indian resistance. And we're talking, since this country started, going back to before 1776, etc., of the fighting of one tribe to another as the white Westerners kept expanding further west all the time. Oregon, by the way, as some of you I'm aware, does not have a great history in this regard either. So, okay, let me get back to what I wanted to say. Yeah, let me show you what the end of this third movement looks like. Let me get these back to my other glasses. Yeah, this is what I want to show. All right, here. All right, this is the first of the last 4 pages. And let me expand it if I can without you losing it. I'll drag it so you can sort of see. This is one of the aleatoric areas in the piece. All right, this is the first page, and you can of the ending of the movement. And if you look at the soprano, live again, great spirit, game of every kind, spirit comes. She's taking Wovoka's speech that the baritone has already said, and doing them at whatever pace she wants to do it. The tenor, all keep on dancing, must, it's nonsensical. And if you look at the Sprechstimme with the baritone, the Indians, as you've heard me say, they're about a foot high and stay that way. Some of them, and the strings start to come in at this point, go a little further. And again, look at the baritone. Some of them will be turned into wood and be burned in fire. And the background for what the soprano, as well, the soprano, tenor, they're continuing their words, they're overlapping. They will reach a point where the conductor will cut them all off. I couldn't quite line up all the stuff on this page, and the baritone, his final words, be burned in fire, and a big scream in fire. And at that point, where the conductor cuts them off, that's when you will see the photographs taken at Wounded Knee by the 7th Cavalry. Okay, that's enough of that. And here's the last page. When the music has cut out, the baritone, as you can see, snaps out of his wishful dreaming and stares at the real reality before him. And that will be the photographs that you will be seeing. And he says, see the butchered women and the children. The soprano and tenor, suddenly they snap out of their dead-like trance. Together they look at the baritone and attempt to deny the reality of what he is seeing. And they whisper together semi-loudly, shh! The baritone, stunned, in terror, disbelieving what he's seeing. See them? Soprano and tenor more forcefully to try and deny what the baritone is saying. And then the baritone, lying heaped and scattered all along the crooked gulch. And the last thing will be the soprano and tenor whispered loudly, shh! So that will be the end of the third movement. So let me terminate this, and I'll go into some details about how the piece came to be in terms of funding. The University of Akron TV production studios received a grant of $5,000 from the Ohio Arts Council to help in the production costs, and $5,000 didn't come anywhere near what it would cost, what it would have cost. I received a grant of $5,000 from the Ohio Arts Council to write the work. Now, the video that you're going to see begins with 2 short video introductions. Some of you may know the name Buffy St. Marie. She's a well-known singer, songwriter. She's a Cree Indian, born in Canada. Well, after the performance was done, she happened to come to town, and she was going to do her own concert at that same performing arts hall. So I and the director went up to her afterwards and talked to her about what we were trying to do, what we had done. And she was very interested. I drove her out to my house. She watched the raw footage of the video and she volunteered. She said, I would like to do a promo for this because we were looking for a lot more money to do a very big production of this. New singers, real professional orchestra, and we had lined up people to do that. We just needed a hell of a lot of money to do it. Well, she volunteered not only to do the promo, but to talk with Marlon Brando about the project because those of you who know Brando will know that he was very supportive of Indian leaders, Indian rights, all kinds of things. So very strong supporter. Now, as it turns out, I never heard back from Buffy, and I was hardly about to try and contact Brando about this. But at any rate, I'll just mention that because she was very helpful. Following her short opening is my short introduction. Please forgive me, but I look a little differently back then than I do now. I did this piece when I was in my late 30s, so you'll see that. I do a short little spiel, and then the piece will begin. This video that you will see involves injecting many photos, paintings, line drawings, other types of art into the production. Permission was granted to us to do this from a number of different American Indian sources. One of whom was a man named Jamaica Highwater, New York City. He had published a major book on that, and we used many of the artworks that were in his book. We sent the tape to him. He was very, very supportive in doing this. The only other thing I'll mention here is the credits at the end. Kind of curious the way this came about. The director had finished the production basically, and he comes to me and he says, okay, we need music for the credits. Oh, really? So I went home that night and wrote music for me as the pianist, the flutist, and one percussionist, and went and recorded it the next day. And then we have the music behind the credits. Now, when the credits roll and they're finished, I'll stop the tape at that point because you may have some questions. There's about another half hour that follows with, there was a lecture, not a lecture really, but a meeting of Indian leaders, myself, and professors at the history department, Indian studies department, etc. And they got together, and that was taped. That took about a half hour. But anyway, so I won't go that far. The only other thing I will talk about is that no, I don't want that. The only other thing I would show you, having done a number of lectures on this, particularly a bunch of places in Ohio, but I got invited to do it at the University of Alberta in Canada, Edmonton, Canada. And then 11 years ago, I got an invitation from University in Paris. This came about probably because a graduate student I had worked with in music, he was working as a professor in one of the universities in Paris, and he saw this production when it was done back in Akron, and he must have talked to, I don't know, people doing it. And so they wanted to invite me out there, and they paid for my flight out there. I had 8 glorious days in the city of Paris, and it didn't take me too long to realize why Paris is the most visited city in the world. I had the time of my life in many ways, besides the lecture I did. But one of the things that blew my mind, and I'll show you this, is that when I got over there, someone had taken the entire libretto, and for their students and faculty that would be there, they saw on the left-hand side of this brochure the English of the translation of the libretto, and on the right side they had translated every single word into the French. So let me show you, just give you an idea of what they did here. Is that it? Yeah, I think so. Okay, let me expand this. So these are just 2 pages, actually just 1 page of the libretto. It was a long libretto. And I should have asked who did this, because I really like to thank them for the amount of work. The left hand is all the English, right hand is all the French. So that was, I kind of blown away by what they did, and that was fun. It's curious for me to have found out that the French, as well as the Germans, are very interested in the American Indian, their culture, their history, etc. That I don't think is the case with the English, England, but I know it's the case with French and the Germans. So this was maybe the reason I was invited over there to do this. I don't know. I don't know. But at any rate, okay, let me terminate this. And I think at this point, all I need to do then is roll the tape. Hopefully there will be no technical glitches. And see it through all 4 movements, and I'll stop it at the end of the credits and see if some of you might have some questions. Okay. Here we go.
I'm Buffy St. Marie. I'm a Cree Indian and a singer and a composer, a songwriter. I spent 5.5 years on Sesame Street, and I've traveled the concert stages of the world and spent time among the indigenous
Is the video
people.
being
Yes, can you
The
see the
title of
video?
our project
No
is
video.
not
No.
yet?
What?
Before a Summer Sun.
Hold on. Let me see if I can
Share.
stop it.
Yeah, no video coming through.
There is no video? Oh.
No, you got to do. Did you do a screen share?
Oh, maybe I didn't do that. Okay, let me do this again. Let me double check. Maybe I didn't do that, which is very... All right, what I'll have to do is with this, I think probably, Ted, that's what I failed to do, so let me do it. All right. With that, share screen. And
I'm Buffy St. Marie. I'm a Cree Indian and a singer and a composer,
here we
a
have it.
songwriter. I spent 5.5 years on Sesame Street,
You got it?
and I've traveled the concert stages of the
Good,
world
okay.
and spent time among the indigenous people of the world. The title of our project is As Snow Before a Summer Sun. Tribute using the highest musical form of one culture to express the tragedy of another. Your support will help to build bridges of understanding between your culture and mine. We hope also that the viewers will be able to understand the importance of preserving our country's Native American heritage.
I remember now how I wondered as I first read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee and thought about the many Indian quotations it contained. Could I make those words live again? Was it possible to shape them into a dynamic whole? And could I, as composer, be true to my own individual identity as a 20th century artist and yet recreate from their own words the tragedy that occurred to their way of life? Could I even begin to convey in musical terms the meaning of a philosophy which held that the earth and humanity are of one mind, that the measure of the land and the measure of mankind are but the same. I think of Red Cloud and Sitting Bull of the Sioux, Waboka, the Paiute Messiah, 10 Beers of the Comanche, Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce, and there are so many, many others. They are no more. How is it? Why is it, as Cochise once said, that they wait to die, that they carry their lives on their fingernails? Those words, that incredible phrase, forever embedded into my memory with the writing of this piece. And how powerful and devastating were the words of Red Cloud when he said, "They made us many promises, more than I can remember. They never kept but one. They promised to take our land, and they took it." They are gone, those extraordinary leaders from so many diverse Indian nations of the 19th century. But are they?
Everything that is dear and sacred to us, I know you will cry with me. Whose voice was first sounded on this land? The voice of the red people, who had but bows and arrows. There are no lies to be told. When the white man comes in my country, he leaves a trail of blood behind him. The Black Hills and the Bighorn Mountain, please make no roads through them. I have told these things 3 times. Now I have come to tell them a 4th time. I don't want to run I will keep my word until the storms melt. Sand Creek. The soldiers are like those who butchered. The children there. The Cheyenne, the Apache, the Cheyenne, the Apache. Another race of people had come. The white man is in the Black Hills just like maggots. And I want you to get them out just as quick as you can. The chief of all thieves made a road into the Black Hills last summer, and I want the Great Father to pay the damages for what Custer has done. The land known as the Black Hills is considered by the Indians as the center of their land. The 10 nations of Sioux are looking toward that as the center of their land. All the wrongs have been done me. I live in hopes I have not got two hearts. Now we are together to make everything else. It is hard for me to believe white man anymore. How is it? Why is it that the Apaches wait to die, that they carry their lives on their fingernails? They roam over the hills and plains and want the heavens to fall on them. The Apaches were once a great nation. They are now but few. And because of this, they want to die. And so carry their lives on their fingernails. I have told you truth. I have no little lies hid about me. But when I go to the river, I see soldiers on its banks. They cut down my timber, they kill my buffalo. As a white man become a child that he should recklessly kill, and not eat, and not eat, and not eat, and not eat. I am but one man. I am the voice of my people. Whatever their hearts are that I talk, I want no more words. I want to be a man. My skin is red, my heart is like a white man's heart. I am not afraid to die. I will not die on the rocks, on the rock. When I die, my enemies will be under me. They drove us to these rocks like a wounded deer. Manifest destiny, our heady, misunderstood burden. The whites told only one side. We told it to please ourselves. Told much that is not true, only our best deeds, only the worst deeds of the Indians, as the white man told. I want to settle you on a reservation. You will not roam the prairies. You will go to that sickly land and be apt to die there. A warrior you have been, now it is all over. A hard time you have. I have made you many promises, more than I can remember. I shall keep but one. I've promised to take your land. It shall be taken. All Indians must dance everywhere. Keep on dancing. Soon, in next spring, Great Spirit come. He bring back game of every kind. The game be thick everywhere. All dead Indians come back and live again. They all be strong, just like young men. Be young again. Old, blind Indians see again, and get young, and have fine times. When Great Spirit comes this way, then all the Indians go to mountains, high up away from whites. Whites can't hurt the Indians there, while Indians way up high, big flood comes like water. All white people die, get drowned. After that water go away, and then nobody but Indians everywhere, and game all kinds thick. Dancing, and the good times will come. Indians who don't dance on must dance. Don't believe in this world. Everywhere. Dancing. Indians. They will go little. Dancing. Indians. About a foot high. Everywhere. And stay that way. Keep dancing everywhere. Some of them will be turned into wood and be burnt in fire, be burnt in dancing. See the butchered women and children. See them? See? Lying heaped and scattered all along the crooked gulch. Where the wind blew free, and there was nothing to break the light of the sun. Where the wind blew free, and there was nothing to break the light of the sun. Everything Misunderstand me, but understand me with reverence to my affection for the land. I never said the land was mine to do with as I chose. The one who has the right to dispose of it is the one who has created it. Created it. I claim my right to live on my land. Accord you the privilege to live on yours. We only wish to wander the prairie, to wander till we die. I did not know then how much was ended. When I look back now from this high hill of old age, I can see that something else died there in the bloody mud. It was buried in the blizzard. Something else vanished as snow before a summer sun. Take it. I shall not be there. I shall rise and pass.
Okay, that is it.
Hello, my name is George Pepper, and I'm professor of history at the University of
I
Akron.
guess I didn't.
I have with me as guests Dr. Dave.
Okay, let me terminate that. Okay. So if any of you have any questions, that was a complex thing to do. It took us, I mean, I went with the director. We searched for these paintings, these drawings together pretty much. We went to New York, went to Washington, went to Nevada, um, other places. I don't even remember now, but it was a big undertaking. So So if any of you have any questions, I'll be glad to entertain them if I can.
I remember, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
remember as a kid growing up outside of Akron, Ohio, and in my teenage years, and I remember these yellow posters posted all around Akron with this performance. And it's only now
Do,
that
huh?
I'm remembering this. Um,
Okay.
it's really bringing back some strong memories that this was going on in Akron, and it affected me as growing up as a kid. I don't think I saw the performance, but just to see it posted everywhere and people talking about it, um, and it's remarkable to come back to that now, and see this now and remember.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you.
Of
Wow.
course, you're not seeing it with the original sound that was really, high quality sound, because this is from a DVD and it's old and stuff like that. But still, I guess as long as you can see it, you get a sense of the whole thing. I guess we all need to have a little bit of outrage from time to time, if that helps motivate us to do something. And I was very motivated to do this. Fortunately, I had people that agreed with me. Uh, for starters, the TV studio at the university and the director Tom Lucas, and like I said, every single one of those applied faculty members that I went to have them be in the orchestra. If I'd had the number of strings that I really wanted, it would have been a much fuller kind of sound in various places. And there's one spot where the first and the second violins are quite high, and they're kind of thin because I needed more violins to do it. But that's why we were looking for a second, another production. And in that area, there was an orchestra in a place called Canton, Ohio, which is the city right below Akron. It was sort of like three cities in a row: Cleveland, Akron, Canton. And there was a guy, Zimmerman, who had the Canton Symphony Orchestra, who was terrific. He had one hell of an orchestra down there, and he looked at the tape, and he knew we were looking for money, and he jumped right on it. He said, "Please, I want to do this piece." And it's just a money thing at that point, like most other things relating to this kind of thing. It takes a lot of money, and so anyway.
So it's not been performed again.
Only it's been shown, it's been sent around to a lot of different places.
Yeah.
I never did send it out for another performance anywhere. I just went on to other things to write.
Right.
Um, but no, I never. This is where if a composer has an agent, that would be their job to do, to get it out to
It's a
all over.
huge undertaking, I'm sure.
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I just want to say how impressed. I mean, it's just a very powerful
Thank you, Paul.
work, well done on your part, and so important. And I thank you for putting it out there
Thank you. Yeah.
back then. And I think also it speaks to your integrity the way you did it. I mean, I feel like you did an incredible job of arranging the libretto, and as a quote unquote white person, also however many years it has been now, what, 30 years or
30,
something.
somewhere thereabouts. Yeah.
You know, I feel like we're just starting to, be able to grapple with how to maybe do a project like this now in a way that feels somehow correct. And I think you did a wonderful job back then. In any case, and it's also cool just musically for me to see, although I've heard a little bit of your older works, mostly I've heard your newer pieces or within the last
Yeah.
10, 15 years, but that your style is in place there. It feels like a piece by you back then too. So I think
What an outrageous
that's
statement, Paul.
my God. But it was cool to hear that. But no, I was just really, really spellbound by the whole project, and I know it must have been a huge undertaking. So I
Yeah,
hope you get another performance somehow.
it was a concept, an idea, um, and it came to fruition because a lot of people wanted it to there. I mean, there was there had been on the university this relationship to Indian leaders around that area in Ohio and across the lake in Canada. And it was kind of interesting to get written responses to it. And I got quite a response from the one of the Indian leaders there that was in the audience. And you can imagine what people, this culture, hearing a contemporary work like this, would have thought of it. So I got a letter from this guy, and he would paraphrase. At first, he didn't know what to make of it, as it went on. But then it's like he saw the light. It really emotionally came across to them. This country, historically, this country has two major sins to it, and we're still not out of either one of them. Big one, slavery, and then what we did to the Native Americans as we created this country. Those two biggies. And we're still reeling with the epic of slavery in this country and white supremacy and all that shit. And that's always bothered me. So I don't know.
You could tell the looks on the faces of the musicians that they were just really internalized the music and were just really playing from their hearts. It was just really gripping. And I really liked your last piece that you wrote to accompany the credits. I think it was just perfect. It was so apropos. I don't know if you've ever heard of Custer Battlefield in outside of Billings, Montana. It was Custer's last stand. Yeah. And when we moved there, when we would go to see the battlefield and see all of the story and everything, it was on as close to a reservation. And it had an attempt to show the Indian side of it, but it wasn't until there was a big fire in Montana. They had fires, like we have now. I mean, it's amazing that they have any trees left. But all the grass was burned there, and a lot of artifacts were found. And the whole demeanor of the Custer's Last Stand had changed. It just changed because it started portraying the Indians' point of view. And it just was, I remember when we came out here, my son and I came out here on the West Coast, and we stayed in a place in Seaside. And the man that owned the place was bragging that he was a nephew of Custer. And my youngest son was very, very outspoken. He says, "I wouldn't say that too loud if I was you." He made it. But yeah, but we grew up in the 50s where we learned this history that was so watered down. I remember when my kids were learning history, and the things they were learning about the Holocaust and about the truth about slavery, the truth about Native Americans, I thought, why are they teaching this to kids? This is awful. They don't need to know this. Really. And it didn't take long before I thought, we've got to know this. We've all got to know it, because it was all so watered down in the 50s that.
And they're trying to do that again now. So schools.
Oh.
So, it's like it comes in cycles, and it just doesn't. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize they were watering it down now. They were trying to do that now.
Well, that book of D. Brown was to me like an explosion. It really awakened me to a history that enraged me, because what really had happened, how these people have suffered, and it's been devastating, and clearly the whites won, as it were. The amount of treaties that were broken, the hundreds of treaties that the U.S. government negotiated with this tribe, that tribe, whatever. In the end, they just wound up stealing their land anyway. So I mean, I've read a bunch of other books too, and the history is interesting. That time when Custer went into the Black Hills,
Yeah.
and their intent was to leave it for the Sioux that owned that area, essentially. That was a major spiritual point for them. And then this was during the Grant presidency, and the money that the U.S. government had spent on the Civil War, all that cost, etc. The U.S. government needed money, so there was a discovery made of gold in South Dakota, the Black Hills area, and that land was promised to them. They said it wouldn't be touched on a treaty at all until conveniently Custer finds invites these people out there. They find gold. It becomes a huge rush of white settlers to come out there and get the gold because the U.S. government needed the gold. They were desperate for more funding. Much of it due to the Civil War. The deficit was what it was back then. It was horrendous. So sure, they wound up taking that too. So the history of our country is great in a lot of ways, and it's very bleak in others. And if only our students from whatever age would just simply learn the truth of what happened with things like slavery, with things like the Native American population in this country. If they're just exposed to that and, learn the truth of what happened, don't try and deny it. Don't try and cover it up. Just accept it as the truth. And then maybe you can move on. Maybe we'll get a better society in the end. So I don't know, but I was motivated by that book. I sent the author, D. Brown, I sent him the raw tape, without any inputs of drawings, paintings, whatever. Got a very nice letter back from the guy. I think he was living in Alabama, if I remember right. He's died now. And then I sent him the finished thing that you guys just saw. And again, I got a second letter from the guy. That book made D. Brown pretty famous. And that book became very, very widely known around the world. Why? Because it opened up so many people's eyes and ears to what happened. So it's a classic. At this point, it's a classic. With a strange name for people, Bury My Heart and Wounded Knee. But like I said, with me, when I drove out there twice, emotionally, you're looking at a trench filled with hundreds of men, women, and children that were essentially murdered and thrown in that trench. You saw the pictures at the end of the third movement. And this, just accept it. It happened. Make things better.
Yeah.
That's all you can try and do. Accept the truth of what happened. Probably every country on this planet has its evil things that have happened before it finally became a country with borders, with whatever. So we are by no means the only country that has gone through doing evil things to other people. But there were some pretty bad things that happened. And, you destroy, essentially, a culture was destroyed. And when it was all over, essentially in the 1890s or so, and when Indian children, small children, were torn away from their parents, brought to these Indian schools in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, wherever the hell they were, and that happened in Canada recently. I mean, the knowledge of what happened in Canada with the schools there, and where they just pounded the culture out of them, would not then let them speak their language, and on and on and on. It's just, okay, you know about it, be aware of it, teach it to others, and try and move on and make things better. You can't erase the past. But so, like I say, I was pretty motivated by that book, and fortunately, I had a lot of other people that agreed, and particularly, like I said, every one of those musicians, the faculty. Nobody was paid for this. The baritone was paid. He was not on the faculty. we brought in a bassoonist at one point. She played in the Cleveland Orchestra, uh, but most of it was the faculty at the university, and they were really, really qualified faculty. Our school was very competitive because right down the road was the Cleveland Institute of Music. And they got, okay, they were well known, lots of things. They got some major students there from all over the world. But we got some of their students too, because our school was a hell of a lot cheaper as a public university than the Cleveland Institute of Music was. I had a lecture up there on this piece. I went to Baldwin Wallace Conservatory. I did a lecture on the piece there, etc. It was not quite the things I discussed tonight. I didn't really get into how it actually began, but I went into more depth relating to various parts of the piece as well, and other more historical aspects. And like I say, I won't I won't forget going to Paris about it, and that was 2010, and they were wonderful.
Have you done any other presentations like this here in Oregon? I'm thinking also
No,
with
not at
Les
all.
Pierce and Chief Joseph being
I
wonderful.
know, I
Yeah.
know. I've been out to those areas in Eastern Oregon, but no, I never have. I never have done anything, shown this piece anywhere but just you guys. And I think long time ago when our group was being formed, I showed it there to the group that was there. But most, no, have not done anything since.
It still feels like such an important piece. I mean, it's really still it's it.
Yeah.
I think it could. I could see it on a program, this year easily.
You'd have to find a conductor that is empathetic to the story, to the program. And that conductor would have to hire really good singers for it. And maybe in an orchestral situation, the way they do now, the way they do it with projections on a screen or on walls or whatever, something like that could be done. It certainly could be done. I mean, I'd love to have a really, really good orchestra, professional orchestra, do this. That's why I was delighted when that orchestra in Canton, when the conductor Zimmerman there said yes, he really wanted to do the piece, depended on the funding. So, and even from the beginning, the first, let's say, Indian person that saw it and liked it and wanted to do something was Buffy St. Marie. And boy, we were just you know, beyond delighted to have somebody with that kind of a reputation try and take it on. I wonder what happened, but at any rate, so but it's a contemporary piece. It's not for everybody's ears, and a lot of people will not be empathetic at all to what is said by the singers and the story. So again, if I had an agent, hey, here's your job, go do it. Flood the United States, see what kind of a response you get. This is enough. You've got enough of it on the DVD to give people an idea. You go sell it because I can't do that. I don't, I want to write another piece or whatever there. Plus, when I wrote this, I had a full-time teaching schedule. Although that's not quite true because I finished this piece along with another piece when I had a year sabbatical in Los Angeles. So that piece was a commission from the Akron Symphony Orchestra, Lewis Lane, and this piece I was maybe halfway through. So both pieces I finished out in Los Angeles, and then came back to Akron to finish the details on it. So I did have space, I did have time. I did some teaching at USC when I was there, one semester anyway, but then I could focus on the two scores orchestral scores that I was working on. So yeah, when you've got a full-time teaching schedule, things can be more challenging for you. You get them done. I mean, no, those that work in a university settings, and in my case, I was incredibly lucky. How could something like this be done if I wasn't? I would never have had the money on my own to pay for an orchestra. I never paid a dime to have this produced, not one dime. So why? The University School of Music was like my laboratory. I could write anything I wanted for anybody there and have it performed at no cost to me. None. Zero. Of course, in a university, you're expected to produce, or you don't get promoted, your salary does not go up, that sort of thing. So it's not that they're holding that kind of a hammer over you. You want to do it. So everybody in the faculty, full-time faculty, has to be creative. If flute, you're not just teaching flute students, you are performing all over the place. If you get to go to Europe and you perform there, fabulous. That'll look great on your credentials, and it will translate into money, increase in job salary, that sort of thing, get you more students. So sure, you want to do that. So this was the creative part of what I did, but nobody forced me to do it. Nobody forced me to do anything. However, if I didn't write there, I would have eventually been fired. And you either produce, show your students an example of what you do, as in my case, a composer, another case, percussion teacher, whatever. And if you're not going to do anything on your own, you're not going to be there long. So, yeah, in my case, I wanted to. But like I said, I had really, really wonderful faculty to deal with. Many of them became good friends of mine. There were only three composers on the faculty there, and we also taught theory stuff, typical in a university setting. But yeah, it was a great place to be. If I was on my own, I couldn't grow. The most important thing the university contest can do for anybody that really works hard at it is to grow as a composer. And you write something, you're not sure it's going to work, but you believe in it, you get it performed well. And if there are things you want to change, you go back and change them. All part of the growing process. And for 28 years, I was in that kind of environment. And like I say, I was just damn lucky to be there. So I grew as a composer. I learned a lot, and my students then learned from me. Um, so it was for me, a really, really good situation. The later years that I stayed there, the quality of the students started to go downhill to the point where it affected the graduate students I was working with, and then it finally sort of seeped down into the undergraduate area, and I became less interested in staying. So I took what they called an early retirement. They came along with what they called, quote, a 5-year buyout. If you're there at a university for 30 years, then you are at a maximum kind of salary in terms of your retirement pay. And so I was there 27, and they came to me and they said, we'll buy you 5 years. You'll get credit for 33 years if you leave now. And they'll get a younger person in there at the assistant professor level, and only if you leave. Now, that was the last of 3 5-year buyouts that they did. That system ended in Ohio, but it was so I took advantage of it because I was ready psychologically, I think, to leave. But still, I do miss the faculty, and it was a very competitive kind of thing because some of you heard me say this before. No, not only were we close to the quality musicians at the Cleveland Institute of Music, but on the western side, there was Oberlin, there was Baltimore Conservatory. In Cleveland, there was Cleveland State University, which had a very strong music department, a terrific jazz program. And 20 minutes to the east of us was Kent State University. They had a big music program, but it was primarily focused in music education, not performance. We were focused heavily on performance, um, and that's why it was a great environment for any composer there, because you make friends with these people. You go up to them, can I write something for you, etc. And some cases they came to me, and asked me to write something for them, and I did. I think almost the only faculty member I never wrote a piece for was the guy who's right across the hall from me, the sax performer. I just never got around to it. Um, the band director there, he'd been after me for God 5, 6, 8 years to write a band piece. Well, I don't like band music, so I constantly said no. And so he finally badgered me to the point where I said, "All right, I'll do something." And the way I did it was to get something like 10 scores of different composers, all 20th century type composers, and study the hell out of them. Not that I was going to copy any one of them. You really can't. One of the pieces in band literature that I was so impressed with was, of all things, this piece that Arnold Schoenberg wrote late in his life, a work for band in G minor. It was a commissioned piece. This guy, okay, I'm being paid for it. You want it in G minor? I'll give it to you in G minor, with somehow my voice still in it. And it was, by God, Schoenberg's voice was there. But the piece was in G minor. And it was an absolutely wonderful piece. So, yeah, I won't forget that. But I started looked at a lot of other scores too. The guitarist on the faculty was a terrific guitarist, classical guitarist. He came to me and asked me to write a piece. And I was very hesitant because guitar is, if you're not a guitarist, it's just a maddening kind of instrument to learn to write for. But anyway, he suggested 12 scores to me, and I spent months studying these 12 scores before I finally put a note down on paper. And then he premiered the piece there. But to my luck, at least in terms of getting some royalties for it, he took my piece and other pieces on a concert tour. He did it 13 times in a whole pile of different cities. And I got credits through ASCAP for him doing that. So that was fun. Write a piece for somebody and then have them take it all over the world when they do their concerts. That's the way to really get your name out anyway. So whatever. Anyway, I know we're going on here. Are there any other questions of any kind? I don't want to stay too long here. Here. And going once, and twice.
I have a question.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody, but yeah, I really do want to. Did you ever work with tribal people directly, or did you have someone that knew how to do that?
No, none. I had not until the piece was done and performed did I start to develop a relationship with people from various tribes in that area. If you were to see the other 30 minutes on that video, there was one of the Indian leaders that was there in the audience, and who was the head of this. I forget which tribe. Oh, Alaska. Alaska was the Klickitat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I forget
Just getting
which
up there.
one. But yeah, he had a lot to say. There was a historian in the history department there, and he had printed up a lot of very, very interesting things regarding the context for why the piece was done, how it was done. I was there. They asked. I was almost last in terms of who they asked questions of during this almost like a committee meeting kind of thing, done before now. So this whole thing becomes an hour plus. The whole tape becomes an hour plus thing. But usually, if I would go on the road with it, so to speak, to talk to people about it, I wouldn't show that part. It was just the performance, and then they would talk to me with questions about it, how it came to be, stuff, like that. But so that's pretty much all I can say. Kevin, did you have anything else that you wanted to say? Really interested.
No. Well, I got tons of questions. One of these days, I will.
Posters for the damn thing. That's
yeah, isn't that crazy? Wow, I still remember that.
Wow. Okay.
What year was it that you performed it there? What year was that?
80, it's written in 80, 82 or 83.
Really?
Yeah, about then, because I finished it, like I said, in Los Angeles. And then I came back with it as a finished piece. And then the production started to take place.
I see.
This guy, Tom Lucas, who was involved in the TV production studio, really got involved, and he saw the tape, and he arranged for the multiple camera setup at the time of the performance, so you could get various shots from
Wow. So I wasn't living in Ohio in those years, but I bet I heard about it through Keith because he was, I think,
yeah,
there at
Keith.
the university. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of my students, or the students there, saw it because we exposed them to it first. And again, it was an eye opener for a lot of the students. They didn't have a clue about anything like that having happened either. So it's an educational kind of thing, as well as, I don't know that I'd ever dare use the word entertainment in this context. But like I said, it was a musical historical tragedy for television, done for television.
David, do you know where Gnadenhutten is in Ohio? Gnadenhutten?
No.
Do you know about the massacre in Gnadenhutten?
Oh, no, but I'm not surprised.
So, and I have ancestors that founded that town. So I don't know if they were there already, but you know, the Stocker, Lorain County Community College, their big music building is named the Stocker. So that's the Stocker family. That's like I have common ancestors there. So I went to visit there, and it's really tragic. There were like 96 Native Americans who were just massacred. They were locked in a cabin, and I think they torched it or something. And so there's a big burial mound there where they're buried, and it's
I did see burial mounds like that in Ohio and other states, but not in the particular area you mentioned. But look, I moved out to Oregon, and I started learning about the stuff that had happened here, which was not pleasant, not at all, relating to American Indians. Yeah, it's like I say, we have a history. We cannot change the history, but we should be exposed to it, and we should expose it to other people so they know the truth. And I won't say move on, but make things better for these people. When I moved from Ohio, I went to Georgia for 6 years. I left it because I couldn't stand the heat, the humidity, the culture. I met people, believe it or not, who sounded like they wanted their slaves back. It's terrible. It was just terrible. This was outside of Atlanta, near Athens, but it was a rural community. And my God, I just couldn't stand it after a while. I had to move. And the only reason I moved out here is that, in part, my son was doing his medical residency at OHSU in Portland. And so we'd come out here to visit him, and I just fell in love with the place. How can you not, between the kind of ocean and the coastline we've got and the mountains? What's not to love? I didn't know any people. The only one I knew when I moved out here was the double bass principal player, Frank Libretto, who was in the orchestra. And he gave us how the group sort of got started. He gave me some names. One of the names, the first name he gave me was Thomas Svoboda. I called him up, went over to talk with him about trying to create a group to see if there was something like the Cleveland Composers Guild or some kind of composer organization out here that I could join. And there wasn't. And so that was the beginning. Tomas gave me names of other people to contact, and a group of us got together. Then a group that included people like Jeff Winslow and Greg Steinke and Gary Noland and Jack Gable, and myself, and a few others. And so that's how it sort of got started. I was the organizer initially of that kind of thing, but something did happen. Now in that meeting today, I learned we've got through Jeff, got 89 members of the Cascadia chapter. It's a bit large, but okay. I thought maybe at the max we'd probably get 12 to 15, which would be fine, but was not to be. So here we are at this kind of monster size. And we are the biggest chapters of 11, pardon me. There's now 11 chapters relating to the National Association of Composers USA. But at any rate, so. But this is a very Portland, is a very dynamic area, as you know, with all the concerts that go on. And we were really riding high until the damn pandemic hit. And that affected everybody, everything. So,
We'll get there again.
yeah, I think we will. I think we will.
Really amazing, compelling piece, David.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you people were exposed to it, so you can see what drove me to want to do a piece. And I just was lucky enough to be in an environment that could allow that to happen. I don't know what else to say. Had that not been the case, it wouldn't have happened, and a lot of other pieces wouldn't have happened as well. So, no, I had really, really quality players on a lot of the chamber music that I did. And for one thing, we had, and this was due to the Cleveland Composers Guild being involved with it, we had members in the Cleveland Orchestra come out and do our chamber works. Those orchestral members, they were more than happy to get out of the orchestra and just show it individually, one-on-one, they could do. One of the best performances I ever had of a quartet piano quartet was all members of the Cleveland Orchestra doing the damn thing. And the level of performance is just so high. It's hard to know what your stuff can really, really sound like in the hands of somebody at that level. And boy, is it a joy. So, the Cleveland Orchestra for us was like our neighborhood band. Student tickets when I was there would cost them like $10 to go up to any concert, get in there. And we used to berate our students if they did not go. So we'd pound on them to make sure they would get up for a Cleveland Orchestra concert. And I heard, living there for 27 years, I heard great stuff. Imagine hearing Mahler's 8th Symphony 3 times. The Cleveland Orchestra doing. Can you believe that? For those of you that are familiar with that area, there's a place called Blossom, where the Cleveland Orchestra has its, quote, summer home. So I heard the Mahler 8th at once there, and I heard it twice at their Severance Hall in Cleveland. But how lucky do you have to be be able to hear a piece like that? Not just once, but 3 times. They did every damn thing under the sun. There's nothing that orchestra could not do. They had some problems with conductors. Orchestra members at that level, they like to play games with conductors sometimes. I think they know it all, and they would tell me. So I got to know about 4 or 5 of the Cleveland Orchestra members as friends. And they would tell me stuff, and it was kind of fun, kind of interesting. How they would test out a conductor when they got home. You knew one there. Oh yeah, they had all kinds of things that they would do, and they did it. But really, it was a great orchestra.
David, thank you. I'm gonna go ahead. Thank you so much. This is a wonderful presentation. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording here.
Okay, yeah.